worst of the worst situations that you could imagine, whether it's a sexual assault of a child or torture of a child. Let's go with torture.
That's awful.
It's horrible. And it adds in elements of physical assault and sexual assault a lot of times. And you have the most depraved minds doing it. And you don't just deal with it the first day. You deal with it for a day and then, okay, hey, let's talk about that case again. Hey, we found out new details. Okay, now we got to talk about all of it all over again. And you may be so involved and enmeshed in something like that for months. But in the same time, you have other sexual assaults, other physical assaults, other drug cases that are going on. You have to learn to kind of compartmentalize a lot of it. One, because you're tired of talking about it. And then just the emotional weight it carries, you just want to move that somewhere else for a little bit. I'm trying to think of how to say this. It's not a clear picture, even if you look at, let's say, serial killers. Not what I deal with. They're a small percentage. And technically, really, what we deal with is probably a smaller percentage than what's out there. But when it's in your everyday, all the time,
Right.
It feels like it's all there is sometimes in the world. And so it makes the world sometimes feel very dark. We were sitting there and I'd been having nightmares, which every few years I would have nightmares because I was putting everything in this box. And I'm like, okay, this is my trauma box. And
Oh, no. Don't tell me you're putting it in the trauma box.
burying everything really deep. But every once in a while, something would happen and trigger that lock to come undone, and those things are piling out. And I would have really bad nightmares in those times. And I was really struggling, seeing some really tortured images on a case that involved torture. And I remember being at Rev Table. I got an image of the child in Jesus's lap.
I think the most common, maybe complaint that many of my guests have is that they don't feel like they're an expert in the field. They don't feel like what they do matters or measures up to maybe some of the others that I've had on. Although I believe that these people are absolutely transforming people's lives. And if you feel like that today, you're in good company, because today on the podcast, I have Jana Jordan. Jana, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to dive straight into it. We'll give a little bit of your background because you work for a government agency known as the blah, 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 and you have a license to rescue blah. But we'll get into all of that. What I want to know is God has placed a protective nature inside of you, and you have used it to save children out of some of the most horrendous and horrific situations known to man. Where did that come from?
Oh, goodness. It's funny. I was trying to encourage somebody who works for me the other day because they were just kind of at the end of their rope, and they were like, I'm just going to go. Our big joke is work at Buc-ee's. I'm just going to go work at Buc-ee's. That's it. I'm taking everybody. We're going to work at Buc-ee's.
They pay amazingly well.
do,
Have you looked
right?
at their signs when they're hiring? You're like,
Yes.
I think I'm going to quit and be a manager.
Gosh, manager.
Manager's like
$1,000.
$200.
Yes, it's ridiculous. But so she was having this moment. I'm like, I don't think we can do that. And she said, what? I said, well, I never wanted to be in this field. When I was growing up, I was going to be a vet. I got to college and struggled in chemistry, so that was out. So,
Wait a minute. I just talked to a young man the other day on the podcast about wanting to be a vet. He's getting into it. He said nothing about chemistry.
oh my gosh.
I don't think he knows yet. We might need to give him a heads up.
Maybe a little heads up because, and I say I struggle. I was passing with a top C, which some people are like, okay, you pass. Well, that's not enough to get into vet school. Or it wasn't when I was going to school. So you had to have straight A's, basically. And I tried it twice and said, okay, never mind. This is never going to happen. And so then in college, I switched my major to ag economics. I wanted to go into agriculture type of research. I like numbers. And so I really wanted to do that. And I minored in interrogations.
How does that? Whoa, how does that even pop up? How do you go from that to interrogations?
I don't know. It was just I really like the criminal justice field, and there was a professor who was doing a lot of courses on interviewing and interrogations, and I would just take them for fun. Because I took one, and it turns out I was decently good at it.
Pretty good at interrogating
Yeah,
people.
I was
Oh
pretty
my
good at it.
goodness.
And he was always encouraging me just to take another one. So I took several of those and just was it was just something on the side, and it kind of filled all my electives I needed, and I enjoyed it. And so he really wanted me to change my major, but I was really dead set on research. And I look back and like there were all these people who would consistently go, "Hey, you know what? You should look into law enforcement, or you should look into investigations." I remember one time I was working at a popular barbecue place here, and
You work for the popular barbecue place here?
for a couple years.
Really? Did not.
Yeah. So, and I was just talking to a customer one day. We were just talking back and forth. Turned out he worked for the FBI. And by the end of the conversation, he's like, "Here's my card. If you'd like to join, we'd love to have you." And I laughed and I was like, "I'm never going into anything like that.
Is that
Not my thing."
Is that what it's like to be recruited by the FBI? Just somebody comes along and goes,
They say, "Hey, you seem like you fit." So I don't know. That was one of the only times I was ever asked to join. So um I got asked one other time at a conference after I already worked for my agency. So, but
excuse me, I've never been asked to be a part of the FBI. Little tidbit you might have left off of your resume. I think that would be on the top line of everything. Every conversation that anybody entered into with me, I'd be like, "So, hi, how are you? I'm Jared Brown. Listen, I was recruited by the FBI once. Well, twice."
if really recruited is the best. I mean, it's just a card in a barbecue place. But all that to
I
say,
don't know how else they would do it.
I don't either. Now that I say that, um, but so then that I graduate college with my degree in economics, and I'm ready. I'm trying to get in at this research place, and they're basically like, "You have to start your master's." And my parents are kind of like, "Hey, we're done paying for college. You got your degree. You're on your own here," rightly so. And so I needed to find a job that I thought I could do while I worked on my master's, so I could then apply for this other job. And a friend of a friend was like, "Hey, you should apply for this. They're looking for people. They're basically desperate. Here you go." And so I applied, got the job, and I think I did that for 6 whole months. It wasn't investigations. And somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we love you. You're doing a great job. We just really think you have the heart of investigations. You should be doing investigations somewhere. I've got this position all lined out for you. We've already got your stuff. All you have to do is say yes." And so I said yes. And then through that was 18 years ago.
There you go.
And
How's
so
that taste? We're the same age. That's why I get to ask it.
not well. Every time I'm like, "No, it can't be that long. I'm not that old," but yes. And so that was 18 years ago. And then God has just kind of moved me to different spots, things that I've never, ever thought I would do. And
This all in the same organization?
yes,
And has it all been kind of similar, like investigations?
ever since that I moved over to investigations, that's all I've done. So I did bottom level work for several years. And thought I'm never getting into management.
So what does that entail? Because when we started this podcast, I say I'm teasing because we've had a conversation off camera about you don't feel like you're an expert in the field, but you literally, and I'm not using it the way that millennials and Gen Z use literally. You literally save children's lives. You're an expert in investigations to destroy sex trafficking rings, to root out folks, even homes that are built to protect and house, uh, you know, kiddos who have come in from rough situations who are being rescued by the state. You actually go in or have in the past gone in and investigated those homes. I mean, if it's in investigations, you've done it and you've saved kiddos. What is that like to be a part of that? I have a feeling, and I want you to answer it, but I have a feeling it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
I was gonna say it's there are good days and bad days. You have your highs, but then you have the lows because you see the situations where you do make a difference, and then you then on the other hand, you see the worst of the worst.
Here's what I want to ask, and I was teasing you earlier. I had a conversation with Jesse, and I don't think you can truly understand what you deal with on a day-to-day basis, like this field that God has called you into. I don't think the common person understands the depravity of the world that we live in, and you're on the front lines of that world. So I said, I think I'm going to ask her something, and you're the professional in the field. You know what you can and cannot answer. But if I could ask you to think of maybe one of the worst or an example that you could swap out names and exact situations and kind of maybe tailor it to something that you could share with us, but has enough facts in there that we could get a taste of what it's like for some of these kids who are being.
I don't
One stand out to you?
I don't know that any one particular one stands out because I think it really builds. There are all kinds of things that happen. And honestly, there are things that I see even now that I'm like, I cannot believe that happened. Things that still blow my
For
mind.
example, because
So,
in your field, I've been around you long enough to know you guys are careful to speak in generalities because of protecting the children, family, states information. So y'all
yes,
speak very vaguely. And I don't think people get a good flavor of
probably
what
not.
this means, probably for good reason, but maybe peel back the layer. What do you mean when you say it's the volume? I see this on a daily basis. What do you see?
Well, okay. Think of the worst of the worst situations that you could imagine, whether it's a sexual assault of a child or torture of a child. Let's go with torture because I think that's
That's awful.
something. It's horrible. And it adds in elements of physical assault and sexual assault a lot of times. And you have the most depraved minds doing it. And so on that, you've got that and you don't just deal with it the first day. You deal with it for a day and then, okay, hey, let's talk about that case again. And then, hey, let's talk about that. Hey, we found out new details. Okay, now we got to talk about all of it all over again. And you may be so involved and enmeshed in something like that for months to where it's just a daily discussion. But in the same time, you have other sexual assaults, other physical assaults, other drug cases that are going on. And so it's one of those things where I don't want to say that you have to learn to kind of compartmentalize a lot of it, but it's hard to explain to everybody. One, because you're tired of talking about it. You just because you've talked it to death because you've probably talked to 50 people about it, and then you just the emotional weight it carries. You just want to move that somewhere else for a little bit. The last thing that I usually want to talk about is work after 5 o'clock. You know, and that's just because you just want to put your mind at ease because I I think sometimes I'm trying to think of how to say this. It's not a clear picture, even if you could look at, let's say, serial killers, not what I deal with, but they're a small percentage. And technically, really, what we deal with is probably a smaller percentage than what's out there. But when it's in your everyday, all the time,
Right.
it feels like it's all there is sometimes in the world. And so it makes the world sometimes feel very dark, makes people feel untrustworthy at times. And it's hard to explain to people who aren't in it. Nope, that's, things can be really bad. And then you don't want to dampen people's lives or their outlook on things. You
So
don't.
you're walking around, and I always think this is so amazing about you. You're walking around with all this information because let's say several years ago, we'll go 10 years ago. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you're new to the job, you're in investigations, and I remember chatting with you some back then. I think I knew you then.
It's going to save the world,
You were
save
gonna
everybody.
well, you were saving them one child at a time.
Yes.
And you had one case on your plate. Well, maybe 10, but you had one case on your plate and you were gonna find it's not like these perpetrators come out and say, "It's me, you got me." They're trying to protect themselves and it never happened and you have to dig down to the bottom of it and you became very good at that. But there's one piece of the pie. Nowadays, I mean, you've promoted up the ladder because you were very good. You are very good at your job. You've been great at investigations. God gifted you in that area. But now you deal with it on a scale of like hundreds. Well, I think you oversee hundreds, so I can't even imagine how many cases that is. You would probably know the exact number of cases and be running logs and sheets on all that. Don't tell us, but it is a staggering mass of humanity. And still, that's only the stuff that we've found out about and that is being reported. So I think I can't even imagine the burden that you walk with. You say compartmentalize, but you walk with when people say, "How was your day? How was your week at work?" How do you even answer that? How was your week at work without shortchanging it and going, "Oh, it was pretty good." Like, do you tell people? Well, we had 400 anyway.
Usually no. Usually I it's more vague. I may say, "Hey, it wasn't great. Man, it was a struggle." But for confidentiality reasons, I don't typically give a lot of details. But then even so, I could say, "Oh, well, we had 4 fatalities this week, so I'm pretty down, because 4 children dying in a week it's unimaginable, and for normal people."
Normal people.
Sorry.
Oh, I can't wait to dig into that.
For the everyday person, but it's hard. It's hard to, unless you really talk to someone in your field, it's hard for people to understand what happens every day. And then once again, you don't really want to at that point. You just kind of want to go, "That's work. This is, you know, this is Stephenville, Texas, and everything's fine.
I live in my safe bubble."
I live in my safe bubble."
Maybe. So it brings up the question. You said I compartmentalize and I have to get through. What do you do since you have this massive, excuse me for a second, evil? You are on the front lines of evil things are happening to pure children. They're children. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? They're children. How do you handle that? What's your process like?
Well, I think my process has been developed over years. There was when we start, they say you have to have something outside of work. Work cannot be your focus, or it will basically suffocate you. Because you will live with all of that all the time. You have to have something outside of it, an activity, a hobby, church, whatever it is. And there's been pieces of my life where I did that really well, and then pieces where I was working all the time, because honestly, it never ends. And it's not just that the bad things never end. There are cases that are complete nothing, but those still have to be thoroughly worked regardless, to prove that nothing really happened. And so regardless, the paperwork and everything else never ends. But I think in the last 10 years-ish, I would say. Um, I remember one time we were sitting here at Rev Table, and I had been shoving things in a box.
What is Rev Table?
Revelation Table, pastors and people in our church would get together, and we'd kind of reflect on the passage and things that have been going on in our lives that week and pray over it and really talk through it. And so it was just a really close group of people who came together and shared what they were hearing from God. And
Being a part of that group, I mean, I have to ask these things on behalf of my audience,
yeah,
right? Say, what is it? I always saw it as a time where we could take some of those things, and the reason we call it Rev Table is because there was revelation that came that we didn't know. Like, here's what's going on in my world. How do I move forward? I need to make a job decision. Am I going left or am I going right? And the Lord would speak into it in that group. Okay, so it was after one of those times.
So we were sitting there, and I'd been having nightmares, which every few years I would have nightmares because I was putting everything in this box. And I'm like, okay, this is my trauma box. And
Oh, no, don't tell me you're putting it in the trauma box and burying it deep.
Burying everything really deep. But every once in a while, something would happen and trigger like that lock to come undone, and those things are piling out, and I would have really bad nightmares in those times. And honestly, I can't remember what I did the times before to shove it all back down. But this time, whatever it was, I wasn't able to do it, and I was really struggling. I was really having seeing some really tortured images on a case that involved torture, and so I was really struggling with that. And I remember being at Rev Table, and I can't remember, it was either you. No, it was you. I was going to say you or Dave. Dave, I think, had the word about just you have to stop putting it in a box. And then, but as we were really praying through it, I remember I got an image of the child in Jesus's lap, and just knowing that they were in a better place, and the things that had happened to them were broken off. And I felt like a lot of the trauma that I had felt prior to that kind of broke off in that, and all that trauma I was carrying. And then after that, I actively worked on giving things to God. I actively worked on, okay, Lord, you have to take this because I can't hold it anymore. I can't put it in the box. I need you to take this and take it from me, and so I'm not carrying it. And so it was kind of just starting to learn to take some of those specific cases, not so much at Rev Table anymore, but really taking cases and handing the child over to God. And even, in my day-to-day now, it's less, I think, I actively praying and saying, okay, God, this child is here, and I, protect them, but also handle the people who did this.
Right.
So, there's a little bit of two sides there for my prayer life. But, I think, it's knowing that God hits a little harder than we do sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and he cares about each one of these kids.
Yeah.
Each one. Doesn't matter if they're the best kid or if they're the worst kid. He cares about every single one of them. And I think, just because I know that it's really easy for me to care about every single one of them. And so, but I've really had to learn to go, okay, God, I have to give this to you. We're done here. It's yours. You have to carry it the rest of the way. So
no more box.
No more box. I mean, occasionally, we are
Occasionally.
stubborn. Sometimes we're stubborn.
I'm not done mulling on that one.
Ready to process that. It's going in the box, but eventually if I start having a nightmare, even for a day, I'm like, all right, there's something in the box.
I don't know how far we should go down this road, but that is something that's interesting to me about you, is that I don't know if I'd call you a seer, but you see things. You see into the spiritual realm pretty amazingly. You see angelic and demonic activity. You see things with, and I don't even know how it works, but like spiritual eyes, or some things that alert you and alarm you, and you kind of know what to do with it. It's obviously like a gift package that God's given you, but when did that develop?
I don't know. I think two gifts that I think I've always had is people naturally want to tell me things. And I think
There goes your investigation bit.
and I think that's why I was always good at interviewing. And I think it's a gift. That people just want to talk and tell me things. I can sit next to a stranger or anybody on a plane and they will just tell me their full life story. I mean, I've flew to El Paso for work and I was flying back and sitting next to this guy. And I mean, by the time we got off the plane, I knew about the whole fight he had just had with his girlfriend. We talked about like his kids, his business, like everything. And we walked away. He never said his name and I never said my name. He just, here was everything. Never even introduced ourselves really. And I'm like, all right, sir, good luck. Goodbye.
Good luck with your wife,
yes,
kids, and the business.
And the business and everything. And so, but I think that's one of those God things. And then as it moved more into interrogation type or investigation type stuff, I always felt like when people were talking, you could feel that ping, like, no, this isn't the truth.
Also like a discernment.
Yeah, kind of a discernment piece that I think has to do with that seeing part is, no, I know you say that's what happened, but that's not what happened. And I think that that's always been the underlying part of my gifting that I didn't really know was gifting at the time.
Jana's just amazing.
Just awesome.
I just know things.
And so, because I remember I worked with a couple of guys, law enforcement guys. I'd be like, "Oh, he's lying." They're like, "No, we think that's all true.
He would never."
No. And we'd get it to the end of it, and there'd be undeniable proof. And they'd be like, "All right, you're right." I'm like, "Told you, knew it." And so, and I've met, like, man, those are the best. I love working with people like that too. They have God-given gifts, whether they know it or not, because they're just truly, really good police officers, law enforcement agents out there who just have that, who also have that gift. And it is so fun to get in a room with them and do an interview or something because you're just pinging off each other and you're like, yep. Got it. Okay.
They're lying.
Yeah.
They're lying to us right now.
And so, but, and then it just developed. I think over the years, as you get more in tune and you're seeking God more, I think your spiritual gifts just start getting more in tune with those and you become more sensitive to things.
I just want to pause for a second. What an amazing gift package. Think this through. You work for the blah, blah, blah government agency that rescues children from evil situations. And you have to, in order to rescue them, you have to investigate the scenario. So he gives you a gift package of like people naturally opening up to you and discernment, being able to see not just spiritually, but like fact and lie in the moment. So he's kind of like supernaturally stacked the deck so that they can't hide from you. How much fun is that?
It really is fun. I think, I loved being in the field. He has changed my gifting over the years as he's moved me in my jobs. That's not quite as, I don't use that as much anymore, or ever really, unfortunately. I do in certain situations, but
it's applied to the staff.
But for other things, but I loved the field because that I was good at it. And so, being in the field was awesome for me and I thrived there. Um, and I think that's why I stayed there for so long. I really did overstay.
Well, I remember having this conversation with you many years ago. You were gifted in the field, bright and shining star, and everybody, since you're so gifted, it's what happens in our work. When we get skilled at something, you get promoted and people want you, to do that, but show other people how to do that at a, bigger scale and level. So you got into leadership in your organization and started just kind of rocketing through the ranks after you got out of the field. What's that been like to see God develop that leadership package in you?
It's been wonderful and terrible all at the same time. It has been, I have to say, the first few years, oh my gosh, no. I'm going to tell you the first 3 weeks, I cried every day. I moved into leadership and I moved into a spot where there was a lot of conflict at the time. And there was a lot of controversy on me being moved to leadership because it was in a different area and they had people they wanted. And so nobody was happy about me getting it. And I remember leaving work every day crying like, Lord, what have you taken me to? And then as I trusted and leaned on him, he just continued to show me, hey, this is where you need to, I'm trying to think of the word. This is where you really need to invest. And he would reveal to me things that I needed to really spend time and invest in as I was trying to build something there. And then
what were you trying to build?
Cohesive, like a cohesive team.
I just assume that it's a government organization. There's teams everywhere.
They are.
What's different?
At the time, in that role, there were multiple investigation units basically, and they did not get along. And when I arrived, they also didn't work with law enforcement. They didn't, it just was a very divided. Everybody was trying to do their part, but they were doing it separately.
Gotcha.
And so the entire time I was there, it was really about getting all of those teams to come together and start looking and doing everything as one collaborative group. And then just working together for our common goal, which was kids. And so God pulled me into that, and it was a lot of work. But it was great work. And then I did that for a few years, and at the end we had a really great cohesive team that was just outstanding. It was just wonderful. And we
see, this is something I want to pause on, because you loved your job when you were in the field. Gifted for it. And then you get promoted, reluctantly come out of the field, you get into some form of leadership, and you start wanting to build teams that actually care about children, that not just fighting internally and trying to rise through the ranks themselves and promote, teams that actually work together and love children. And that sounds like crazy, but I love that God is doing that, because I'm sure you're not alone.
Oh no!
I'm sure there's tons and tons and tons of people in the organization that you work for that are pulling towards the same thing. But it's so cool to hear your story, that you're gifted in such a way to tear down evil, and then you get promoted and you're able to combine a whole couple of units together that become cohesive, and then they're gifted to tear down the strongholds of evil. And then that's not the end of your story, because that's just part of the.
Well, and I think I've learned since then. So we were at the time, the area I worked in was not here in Erad. I every time I leave an area, I'm devastated in a way, because I've built so much with those people and those teams, and not just within my organization, but everyone around. Luckily, like at the time I was leaving Stephenville because this was my home area. And luckily, I really haven't lost any of those. I don't work with them hand in hand anymore, but a good chunk of those relationships with the law enforcement, the DAs, and everybody are all still there. So that's always nice. And then I went up to another county, and it was the largest county at the time, the largest county in Texas that didn't have a children's advocacy center, which is a center that is devoted to doing interviews with kids, non-traumatic. We try to do non-traumatic interviews with kids, and basically a safe place for kids to recount stories where they don't have to be questioned by us or the police or anybody. It's a third-party entity. It's in a comfortable space, and then everybody's able to observe it on the outside and ask questions so that it's not a bunch of people. Because imagine being a small child and having
I can't imagine having a police officer in front of you asking you questions.
So it's supposed to be, it's really designed to be less traumatic for children. They only have to tell a story once and not relive it over and over, because every time you tell it, you have to relive it.
Yeah.
And so at the time we didn't have one. And so as I was building that multiple disciplinary team, they were like, oh, we've tried to build one of these twice. It never worked. It never gets off the ground. And it's one of those things where people are like, oh, that's impossible. You can't do that. And God's like, watch this. And so God brought all the right people, from law enforcement agencies to the DA's office to the perfect person to lead that team once we got it established. We got, just unheard of things. Like the county was like, well, we have this old building sitting here doing nothing. If we'll just let y'all have it for free. And so, oh my gosh, we have a center now. And okay, well, we think we can get these grants if we can get all this paperwork in. Okay, does anybody know how to do the paperwork? Well, one person did. Okay, congratulations. You get to be vice president because we need you to help with the paperwork.
Hereby knight you vice president.
We're building a board and we're doing all these things that nobody knew. And I'm sitting there Googling how we do half of it. And then, oh, hey, yes, we need this much of a donation. Oh, the sheriff's department's like, hey, we've got all this seized asset money. We need to put it somewhere. We'll put it towards that. And so, just one after the other lining up, just miracle after miracle. And the thing that they thought would never take off is up and running strong, even to this day. So that was really awesome. One of the many things I've seen God do.
That's a cool part of what I love about your testimony and your story is you get to see. So from my perspective, I would say, having been in the government world, working for the government for a couple of years, fresh out of high school, it's a bureaucratic nightmare. And people, it's just eating one another, trying to climb the somewhat of a corporate ladder, even though it's governmental. It's very fractioned and factional, and it's a grind. But to hear your stories as you've gone through kind of the ranks of this organization about how God is orchestrating and bringing different facets of a community together, or different units from different governmental organizations to want to work together, has been so cool to hear, because it gives me a little bit of faith in, we face this astronomical problem of evil's running rampant, and it's going for our kids. Like we talk about this all the time. It's just like Satan doesn't ease up just because they're under 13 or whatever, It's because they're minors. They get the full brunt, the full weight of it. But God doesn't slow up either.
Mm-mm.
And it's so cool to see how he has put people like you, and you're able to walk into these environments and go, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to, between Google and the filling of the Holy Spirit, we're going to know who to go
figure
to.
It out. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're going to want to, and then you get to report back and say, miracles happen the sheriff's department found some money. We found out which grant to write. We hired the right person, and then it all congealed. And like, to God be the glory. There's going to be children who have a chance at having their story heard, at having, a protective element. And even like, to your point, what you were saying just a minute ago, like, they may even be restored in all of this, because I mean, that's the piece that I'm looking for in the future, where they get to learn to hand their issues and their trauma over to Jesus, like the folks who are rescuing them out of, the trauma and the danger are handing their issues over to Jesus, and he sets them free from it. Let's go with the box and the chains and
let go of all that.
Yeah.
And go forward.
I love that about your story. I appreciate that. I know it's vague. We don't do any confidentiality stuff, but I appreciate you letting me have a peek on that over the years, because that's always been fascinating to me, to see that like our God's fighting for the least of these.
He is fighting. I think I have to say, I don't see, sometimes it feels overwhelming. I know that I say that, and there are days you see me not in a good place, in the pit, where I'm like, darkness is going to win. That's just it. Nobody cares about the kids anymore. But God does. He does care. They're on his heart. And I've really had to really understand a lot lately, because I think in my mind, in my very small, closed mind, hey, God, just save them, let me do whatever I want, and, and I will save them all,
Turn me loose, Lord.
Yeah.
I can do a much better job.
Let me get it all done. And,
Okay.
And I have had to he's really had to refocus me to, it doesn't always look like what I think it should look like.
That's good.
And there is going to be trauma. But God can redeem that.
That's right.
He can heal that. And honestly, I think, each step of my leadership, and when I have been in different roles, he's changed my focus. When I was in that role, my focus was to bring together that team, and then build that advocacy center. And that was what I was called there to do. I think now, I feel like I'm called to do something a little different. I think my leadership style now is trying to teach people not to box that up, and trying to.
What do you mean by that? Teach them not to box what up?
I think it's the trauma, I have a team.
Going back to before, I'm sorry.
I have a team now, and it's really getting them to not hold all that in. And honestly, just hold together and keep doing the right thing, and keep moving forward for what's best for kids. And
so now I don't want to go too far too fast, but now you have department heads who are saying, how do we not live in trauma? And I think what is pretty cool, you started something to help them in that process. What have you started?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. There's multiple things. I have little facets. Honestly, I'm going to say I have a team. It goes back to miracles. I'm going to tell you, God has brought a team together of just believers. A lot of people, and even the ones that aren't, they love what everybody has. So it's just so funny how cohesive our leadership team has really started becoming. But my 3 core people right now, I have 3 people under me, and those 3 people are just very spirit-filled believers. And so we can have really honest conversations about things and go, okay, well, let's pray on that.
Yeah.
Let's pray on that. Oh, you ready to rip somebody's head off today? Let's pray on that.
Yeah.
We had a whole thing going for a little bit where I gave all my team tens, and they it's like give it to God on it. And like we would write it like every day if something was, something out of our control. Like lots of things happen that are out of our control, but we have to deal with it. And that's the thing when you get to a certain level of leadership, that's the thing that can rip you apart. You can live in well, if God would just do this, if God would just move this mountain, if he would just give us more money, if we could pay people better, if we could, give more time off, whatever the thing is. But we can't. We don't have it. And we don't have any control over budgets. And so it's, hey, we're going to give that to God. We'll pray on it and we'll let God handle it. And so we really have been practicing that.
So they take these tens and just like cash them in. Like, I'm gonna have to.
Goodness, I can't even. I don't know where the tins are. They have all their notes in them. Because I can only imagine if they brought them to me, it'd probably be like boxes now of those things. Because I know mine grow. And then we meet weekly for prayer. We have a time outside of work hours that we meet and pray over the division, over our leadership, over the state, over children, and especially for our staff, and their safety and their discernment. And so we meet together, and pray for them. And we really even, pray for, if there's something big going on, somebody's mom's in the hospital or anything like that, we meet together and we pray about that. And then we just really, there's a lot of encouragement. And I think sometimes my team, and we each go through it, man, I'll tell you this. I was telling one of my team the other day, I said, it's funny how God's never lets more than one of us really get down at once. Or there's always someone who's like on up here out of 10 while everybody else is like, it's the worst. But I remember several weeks ago, one of the girls, she was not having it. And she was just in this whole mood. And she's like, I'm sorry, my mood's terrible. And about Friday, I was like, all right, I'm going to have to be with her Monday. We're like going to have to talk it out because it's getting a little too far down there. And I don't remember, something happened and I was down. I was like, God, we're never going to save kids. This is it. All the kids are doomed. It's funny how it goes from 1 to the X. Either we're saving everybody or everybody's doomed. And I get to work Monday and I'm supposed to be with this girl. I'm like, God, I just don't have it in me to talk anyone up today. And I get on the meeting. It's just like, hey, did you have a great weekend? Man, God is so good in me. And she's just diving into it. And I'm like, she's like, I just woke up and I felt like God said that this and that. And I'm like, man, God is good. And she said, why? I said, because I was planning to be this for you, and it turns out I needed it. And
you went and fished that note out of your 10.
Yeah.
Lord, thank you, Lord. We're gonna have that one back.
I don't need that. That's fine. And so I do love that, but I think sometimes there was a point in my life where I have a friend who every time I would be like, oh, this is the worst and the worst. Have you prayed about it? Well, God's plan. I'm like, it was the same like 2 responses all the time. And
it wasn't me, was it?
No, I think it was Jesse actually. And so, and I remember going, I'm not telling her anything because I already know what she's going to say. She just said, I need to have asked God about it. Do I need to pray about it? I want to be mad for a minute. And I think in many ways I have become that at work.
Yeah.
Like, well, we should let's just hold on and let's just, what do you think God thinks about that? And so, but I just have a great team that's very receptive to, all right, hold on. Is that really what it's just like, even though we're all gonna quit and work at Bucky's? Okay, you know God's not gonna let that happen. And that's not what's gonna happen. That God's called us over here. God's called us. And I have one who, I mean, even in this, we were going through some hiring stuff. Um, I had two people that applied for a position, and I honestly wanted to hire the other one, and I've told her this, so it's not a secret. And I was on the fence, but I'm like, I think I'm gonna go with this. And I remember praying about it and just going, God, I mean, which one do you want me to hire? Whatever you say, I'm gonna go with that. I could go, and I felt God go, oh, you need to go with that one. And I was like, are you sure? And
You just asked him. Come on, Jana.
can I double check? Just if you're sure.
Let me turn the fleece over. Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. And then and that was it. And never regretted it. One day.
Wow.
One day. That person has been such a light in our organization, in my life, and everything. And I just, one right after the other came. And it's just, he has just put people into positions and roles around me that have just been such an encouragement and a support. And so each step of the way, we add little things. We have a prayer time that we meet together, and then we kind of have a debriefing that we just started a few weeks ago on Friday, because we try not to carry things into the weekend. I realized we were carrying things into the weekend, and then we were festering on Thursday.
So by the time Monday comes, the family's already had a bad weekend, and you're getting there Monday, and another thing.
And so we kind of started debriefings on Friday of just hey, okay. And it also allowed us to go, okay, what do we need to hit the ground running with next week? What's really happened this week? What do we need to look at? What do we need to pray about? Or, but what do we need to do? And so then everything's calmed down. We already have a start to the plan, and everybody can go and disconnect and go into their weekend. I think that was God inspired too. Every step of the way, every little thing, it's, we got to work. One of my staff the other day was talking about how she's like, and I can't even remember what it is, but she'd been praying, and she felt like God highlighted something about efficiency and how are you efficient when you're feeling burnt out. And we've been really trying to figure out what that means and how we need to approach problems related to burnout or being efficient. And so as a leadership team, we just kind of take that in stride and go, okay, so it's on a little Post-it, so that when we're trying to make decisions on things or trying to figure out where to focus our attention, okay, hey, we've got this word. How does it fit here? Where do we think it is? And so, but just leading a lot like that.
That's so cool. That is so cool. It's neat to see, to me, that's revelatory leadership of a government organization. Mind blown that is happening. So cool that that's in place. I want to hit something because I know that our time together is very, very limited because Bud's got a game here in a couple minutes.
Oh, yeah. We have 18 minutes.
So we're going to fly through this thing. But I want to ask you one question. There is, and if it's too far, if there's too many details, you can let me know. And we'll cut it out. But there was this time where you were having trouble. The organization was having trouble in a major metropolitan area. And you felt like they were going to just kind of break it up and split it up and just didn't know what to do with it. It was so much of an issue. And you felt like God wasn't done with that group. And you had a brilliant idea. And I remember you called me on the phone one night, and we were just kind of praying through and talking through. And you're like, I think God's going to give me a person a person that's going to go with me. I think God's going to give me a person that we're going to meet when we're down there. And I think God's going to, and we're going to do the whole reconstruction of this unit in this. We'll say it's San Antonio or something, but it's a major metropolitan area, right? And so you're like, I think God has a plan for San Antonio. San Antonio, if you're listening, it's not you. I think he has a plan for you. So you went down there. What was that like? Because, he delivered in a big way. To me, watching that story from the outside, it was like he did everything that whenever you were planning on the outset, you were like, I think God wants to do this. Oh, and let me throw on top of this story, your boss at the time, whether they are or not anymore, I don't know. I truly don't know. But your boss at the time was saying, this one's on you. Like, there are ramifications if you go down to San Antonio and it doesn't work out. So, no pressure. But if San Antonio collapses and you're not able to pull it out of the meat grinder, that's your responsibility, and you'll handle all the dings from the higher ups. But God did an amazing thing down there. What was that like to walk out? You know what I'm talking about before I go?
I do know what you're talking about. And I think he's still working things out there in that way. I think there's still more, because he reminded me the other day of something he had said actually in that moment, and that was a while ago. But let
me ask this. I want to hear what he said. Is that unit, is it still broken, disheveled?
Oh, it's thriving.
Yeah.
It is thriving. And it is a light. They're just a heck of a team. And I remember that God in that moment, and I remember I was told it probably wouldn't look like I thought it would look, because this word, but I was told that I felt like God was saying, hey, they're going to be a city on a hill. Mm. And at the time I meant, just going to fix everything, and it was just going to be wonderful. And in ways it has, don't get me wrong, but he reminded me the other day that, hey, it wasn't going to look like you thought. And my thought was, they would be elevated and everybody would turn to them and everything. And that is not really what has happened. But what has happened is they have become a well-oiled, cohesive area. And they have just, well, let me start with, we went down there, and I did take a team down there. And first of all, the cohesiveness and things that came from that team, that group that went, was amazing. It was just some of just people I didn't know that now I'm, so close to. Let me be clear, I have over 100 staff. And so whereas I know a lot of them, I'm not like close or, no details of their life outside of work. And so we took a group of volunteers, and we were in it for 4 or 5 days. Just, I remember leaving, and I don't know that I'd ever been more exhausted in my life, because we were getting up and we were out on it by like 7 a.m. And we would come back to the hotel we were all staying at, and we would sit in the lobby until midnight, just working. And there are bonds forged and things like that when you're spending that much time. And everybody would go sleep for a few hours, and then we were back up and at it again. And the team just was great. But it was the breath of fresh air, I think, that really it let that group know that they weren't alone, that people cared about them, that we wanted to help. And so I think it was just that breath of support and fresh air that came through. And I definitely don't want to discount all the hard work that still came after that on the part of the team that was, the team that we went to help. Because after that, they worked very hard, and now they are night and day. Just they have worked, their leadership has worked hard, and they just have not had any really of the struggles that they were having, that they inherited from other things. But and they've just really, they're just a bright light, and just I mean, I don't even know how to keep describing them. They're just great. And it's not the same issues or anything like that that we were having. And it's just a very different situation down there. And so it was so great coming out on this side of it. There were struggles all around it.
Yeah.
And they're always the people who are like, you're wasting your time. You just wasted your time. But God really used that, and he used the whole situation, and he used it to bond the team that went, but then bond that team down there. So that's, and at the end of the day, it's people. It's people. People are what hold any organization together. People are what, they're the boots on the ground. And if you don't do things that are in the best interest of your people, and if you're not working for your people, then they're not going to work for you. But I think also approaching it, they made us, a few months ago, I had to write, I'm doing another leadership course. And so, because you can always, I think, improve your leadership no matter what.
You and Pastor Ed need to get together, hammer that out. He's a big fan of that too. You could always improve your leadership.
You can. I loved his podcast. It was
imagine you
so
would.
good. It was so good. I took some things from him, and I'm like, yes, I love that. But and one of the things, they made us rewrite a leadership, like a shield, a mantra, of really what we wanted our leadership to be. And I wanted it to be for my team a very safe, and I can't remember the exact wording I used because it was a couple of months ago. But it was grace-led leadership. I wanted to approach my team, and I've really gone into this over the last couple of years. Approach every situation with as much grace as possible, and try to meet people where they're at, because I feel like God does that to me all the time. I remember I had this dream, and it wasn't. I don't even remember really what it was in context to at the time. It could have been struggling with the promise of a husband, and not having it yet. But in the dream, I kept hugging someone, and I was like, see, they do exist. It is going to happen. And I remember, because I think Jason was in the dream, and
he wasn't the one you were hugging, was he?
No, he was not.
Yeah.
It was the one I was like, told you it was going to happen.
Well, that's fair.
That's fair. And so, but I was talking to Jason about it afterwards, and we were talking about how God just sometimes accommodates us and meets us where we're at. And after that, I just really wanted to do that with my people, meet them where they were at. Hey, you know what? You're struggling right now, and maybe you can't do this, but can you do this? Can you at least commit to this? And once we can do this, then you can do this. And that I think is one of the things that has changed things and has helped. And then just grace. We give a lot of grace. Even yesterday, someone said, man, I'm going to need a lot of grace. And I said, you have all the grace I could possibly give, and then God will give me some more. So, and so just giving grace everywhere we can, as much as we can. And there are sometimes we do have to draw, obviously, hard lines in the sand. But if we could give grace and we can meet people where they're at and we can help from there, then why not?
Yeah.
Just try to model that Christ mentality and the heart of God. Sorry, I was thinking, a lot of times you pray and you're like, oh, Lord, align my heart or give me wisdom or, I don't want to fear. And then God gives those situations where you learn how to do it. I think I've been really thinking lately, I'm like, oh, yeah, God, remember when I prayed about this? Now I see what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Now I see it. I'm starting to see it. Oh, I wanted a heart that would love people. You're going to put unlovable people in my life. They're not unlovable. That's not true. But
hard to love.
Hard to love people. And you're going to show me how to love them and how to be compassionate and how to do those things. And so those are some lessons that I think when you ask for things like, hey, I want a heart that loves like yours.
Yeah.
He says, let me teach you. And sometimes that's could be really, really difficult. So,
well, what I love about your situation is you and I have a running joke that you're there until God says that you're not. Although there's many times that it's threatened. It's so wild to me that there is a spirit-filled, loving, like hair on fire believer inside of one of these organizations. I think so many people will say, what can I do? Well, you can follow the voice of the Lord in any situation, because I don't know why, but in my mind, I think that a government organization would be one of the hardest places to say, God told me that we're supposed to do this. Because you can't really talk about it. You can't, it's very much poo-pooed. But yet here you are running a big wing of the blah, 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 rescuing children in the name of Jesus. I get that you don't run around and say, Jesus did this, but you were following his plan. He has a plan for your organization. It is impactful. It is changing people's hearts. It is actually accomplishing the mission that you're set there to do. You're still passionate about it, and you are there until he releases you from it. That's our running joke, because at any time, whatever.
At any time,
he can pull you out of there, and it will be
is it today, Lord? Is it today?
Yes. And at that time, it will be somebody else's responsibility to take the baton and run with it. I mean, you won't be there for forever, but the time that you are there has been an impressive journey. I know we dove into that part of your story. You have so much more to your life and purpose and everything that's going on. That's why I always feel like with each guest, we get like a 30,000-foot view and we get to cherry pick one thing. So thank you so much for letting us into that area of your life. I'm so glad that you were ultra transparent in what you've been through, the struggle of what it's like to bear the weight and burden of dealing with these kiddos. And I think you do an amazing job. So it's the end of the podcast, because we have to go pick Bud up, or you have to go pick Bud up here in a couple minutes and take
football.
Taking football. It's not baseball right now?
Well, we have both, but tonight, every other night, we kind of switch practices. Tonight is football.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Talented kid. So in addition to rescuing and saving babies all the time, you got your own world. But I like to tell the guests, if I know them, something that I wouldn't normally say to their face. And I don't know that I could be any more impressed. You are I'm going to say probably, you are the hardest working person that I know. Every time we are together, you have multiple phones on your person, and you are fielding some of the most, if I happen to step outside of a restaurant whenever you're taking a phone call, you are fielding the most horrific cases and situations that you can't even amplify. I would not bear up under it one day, and you do it day after day after day, volume upon volume upon volume, in a very chaotic, very competitive, for some reason, very stressful, kind of meat grinder type situation. But God has gifted you in such a way that you just do it and so much peace, love, and joy. If you don't feel it all the time, just ask your friends about it, because it's truly, truly special. And then you have time for your friends, you have time for your church, you have time somehow for your amazing kid that you're raising. It's truly impressive. You're an impressive woman. And I know, as you do, that ties back to the voice of the Lord. And so whenever you came here this morning, today, I was teasing at the beginning of this podcast that you don't know why you're here, because most of my guests don't know why they're here. They don't feel like an expert in the field. You are truly an expert. You were like God-designed heat-seeking missile to destroy the works of the evil one, and he's put you in such a point of the spear, tip of the spear place to be able to do that. I would encourage everybody who's listening to this conversation to pray for you, and I hope that as you move forward, you feel mine and Jesse's, but you feel the prayers of the people who now have a face with a position with what you do in serving kids. And I just want to say, impressive person, but thank you for bearing that burden. Thank you for learning how to figure that out, to hand it over to Jesus so that you can have some longevity, because we need you exactly where you are, doing exactly what you're doing. I know it's an immense thing, but you are incredible, and I love you so very much.
I love you too.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's probably enough. So thank you for coming on the podcast. It was all
Thanks
fun.
for having me. I'd love to come back sometime.
You should.
Which is funny, because I really wasn't sure I wanted to come this time.
You said I don't know. Can we postpone this?
Yeah. So, but it was much different. Not different. It was just easier.
Yeah.
To talk than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So, which is funny, because I'm a talker.
Two friends talking. That's what I would say. Just like, we'll just put on like a phone call. We'll pretend to talk to one another. We can go for hours.
Oh, you put Jason in here with the two of us. That would be...
No, that's shenanigans. That's why Jason gets his own quarantine podcast, so I can keep him in a...
It would just be me and Jason going back and forth, ribbing each other.
Oh, 100%. But also in that dream, I side with you. Tall, dark, and handsome.
Tall, dark, and handsome.
Tall.
Yes. Let's just...
Dark, handsome. Okay.
Tall. Yeah. I agree with that. Well, thank you for having me. I do want to tell you that something I don't always tell you is thank you for being the person who just listens and bears the weights when I can't bear it. And then, man, the other day, Jesse and I were talking about something, and I thought to myself, if I could have really anything, I wish I was more like Jared in this. And it was just your openness to see people just the way God sees them. And just really being able to take everything else, push it to the side, and say, oh, well, God sees them like this, so that's how I'm going to see them. And I love that about you. You could be the most forgiving person I've ever met. When I'm at a 10, you're like, well, Jana, so thank you for being that. And thank you for being just having those things that I admire and want. So,
well, Chick-fil-A, my pleasure.
That's right. Oh, Chick-fil-A sounds good.
It does sound good. Let's get out of here. Thank you, Jana.
Thanks.